Talking The Big Sick, the new Kumail Nanjiani motion picture. Very excited to talk about this movie. Been waiting for it for a long time, and it did not disappoint. This, I'm just going to straight up say it right now. This is one of the best films of the year. Probably going to wind up being the best comedy of the year, too. The film stars, again, Kumail Nanjiani, comedian. He's been in a couple movies recently. He's a comedian living... This is based on a true story of him and his wife, Emily V. Gordon, who's also the co-writer of the film with Nanjiani.
He's playing himself.
Indeed, he is. Kumail plays himself as a comedian living in Chicago, trying to make in the industry of stand-up comedy while also driving for Uber. His family's very traditional Pakistani Muslim, and they live in Chicago. So his mother keeps trying to have an arranged marriage for him by inviting over young single Pakistani women to dinner with him, and he doesn't want any of it. He's not a religious person to begin with. So he starts seeing Emily, played by Zoe Kazan, on the side, keeping it a secret from his mother, telling his brother, who doesn't really respond too well to it either. So he kind of keeps it pretty quiet, pretty low-key. But then when Zoe Kazan finds out that his parents are very traditional Pakistani and that they do believe in arranged marriage, she thinks that she has a high chance of separating him from his family and damaging that circle. So she leaves him in kind of a argumentative conclusion, which is one of the best moments of the film is when Kumail says, when Kumail tells her, "You're a therapist. I thought you're supposed to be able to handle your emotions better." Women love hearing that. So then what happens is a few weeks after the breakup, Kumail gets a call from Emily's friend that winds up that Emily's in the hospital with a very weird, strange and rare illness. Long story short, Kumail winds up having to sign off on putting Emily into a medically induced coma. Contacts both her parents, Beth and Terry, played by Holly Hunter and Ray Romano, and the film revolves around their general relationship, the relationship between Kumail and Emily's parents, while trying to grapple with the one unfortunate circumstance after another relating to Emily's sickness and subsequent surgery. So that's really what the film is about. It's sort of a movie about time, about the passage of time, the awkwardness of a relationship, with one's spouses or girlfriend's parents as well. There's a lot in this movie, and there's a lot that this movie is bravely committed to showing.
Yeah, I think just seeing the main strength of this film, the thing that makes it shine amongst all the other romance comedies, dramedies out there, is that it shuffles the deck in terms of structure. In terms of a typical romance rom-com structure, The Big Sick, it doesn't quite upend it. It's not like genre changing, like, say, like George Romero was for horror, right? It shuffles it kind of like how Die Hard was for action movies. Mm-hmm. I know I'm kind of going weird with my similes here, but the structure of protagonist meets love interest, and then they get to know each other and have fun and fall in love for a little bit. That's like the first third of the movie, and then second third of the movie, something happens or they fight and they break up, and then something happens, and then kind of the parents get involved with some support system. And then, they all take time away from each other to go off and find themselves. Then in the third act, they come together, and then they find some sort of resolution. Most of the time, a happy ending, right? Mm-hmm. And that I've just spoiled like 95% of romance comedies, at least before like 2005.
Yeah,
right. I'm not that big of a connoisseur on romance comedies, rom-coms. But I have been raised a lot on Hugh Grant.
Yes.
Romance comedies, which if you've seen one, you've seen them all with Hugh Grant. And it's absolutely true. And I love all his films because it's a formula that works for me. But not to deviate too much from The Big Sick. The Big Sick, what it does is that and this is all in the trailer, non-spoilers, of course. We never do spoilers. But The Big Sick, what it does is it takes away that moment where the couples, each individual part of the couple, so obviously, the Kumail Nanjiani and then Emily, they're supposed to have time away from each other. But instead of having a little bit of time with Emily and then having a little time with Kumail, instead, Emily is just completely taken out of the picture in terms of a coma.
But she's never removed from it. That's the thing. Yeah.
She is kind of removed because like she is completely out of commission for what?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but the movie never neglects her. Every decision that the characters make, and even almost various discussions they have center around her, the aftermath, the situation that's presently. She never leaves the movie. You know what I mean? She's never not
physically speaking.
She's never not looming over a scene. Her presence. I argue her presence is very felt here.
I think when Ray Romano, when the parents come in, Ray Romano and Holly Hunter come in, and kind of like replacing Emily to an extent, that side of the relationship,
replacing the physicality.
All of this was just me getting to the point of the parents coming in instead of the love interest, and kind of just completely replacing that character to an extent that shuffles the deck in terms of a rom-com.
Indeed, yes.
I loved that aspect. Mm-hmm. And Kumail Nanjiani is a great protagonist.
He's a great presence. He's a great presence.
He ran the risk when I first kind of, because I had never seen him before. I'm sure he's been in other things, and maybe I have seen him before.
This is really he's like I almost went into this movie thinking that like he was bigger than he was. He's really just starting to break on the scene.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's just starting to break on the scene, really. He was in Fist Fight. He was in The Late Bloomer, which is another comedy I saw. He was in Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates. He was always like a here and there kind of character. You know what I mean?
I never really noticed him.
You know, personally. I mean, he's also got a fairly large role, I think, too, in the Lego Ninjago movie, too.
That's probably why I didn't notice him there either.
Obviously a speaking role, but or you know what I mean, a voice role and stuff like that.
But that hasn't come out yet.
Yes, but like he's really just starting to break onto the scene. Absolutely.
Yeah. But then he really comes into himself. That's kind of a cliche, excuse me. But he really does, because he ran the risk first starting out in the movie of just being this kind of faceless, kind of no name, whatever, kind of bland performance, and just kind of like, oh, here's young millennial dude who, and his one, kind of unique thing is that he's Pakistani, and then he could use that as a crutch. But he explicitly, well, maybe not explicitly, but there is a point in this movie where he goes in his stand-up routine as the character, Kumail Nanjiani, he goes, yeah, I do stand-up routine, but I try to not use my Pakistani heritage as too much of a clutch, right? Or too much of a crutch, I should say. I guess both. And he does the same thing in terms of his acting, because even though obviously his Pakistani heritage plays a huge role in the plot of the movie, and how can it not?
It was very funny too with the one-man show, you know what I mean?
And
stuff like that whole thing. Bo Burnham too.
That sequence reminded me, we're going to talk about him in a bit too. That sequence reminded me of this kind of low-budget, kind of forgotten movie called The Rebound, starring Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Yep.
And
Justin Bartha.
That's
Justin
Doug.
Bartha from The Hangover. Doug from The Hangover. Yes, Justin Bartha.
I actually really enjoy that movie.
I never watched it, but no, I know exactly what you're talking about.
There was a
that was released after The Hangover too, because Bartha was quote unquote big at that time.
Yeah. That was his like national treasure days as well, right?
Yeah, that really, if he had those.
I like that movie. But anyway, I think it reminded me of a sequence from that movie as well. But yeah, Bo Burnham here makes, even though he has very little screen time in comparison, he actually kind of breaks out here as well. He doesn't have any standout stuff here, not like I don't know.
I will say I did like when he's on stage and he says, so last night I was mansplaining to my girlfriend, and stuff like that. And I like what he talks about with like he says, you got to take this opportunity. You don't want to be like Stan over here doing the people say Stan bit since 2003.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
But Bo Burnham has a presence. I would say even stronger.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe it's just the way he was introduced in the movie, or how he was portrayed in the movie, and his writing and what was written for him. But I even think his presence was even bigger than Kumail Nanjiani's, and he only has like 5% of the screen time.
He's more obvious than Nanjiani.
Maybe that's
what it is. And his characters got polar opposite personalities.
And he's a YouTube star. That's his claim. That's his rise to fame, right?
Yes.
Because he's a musical comedian. I think he's great in terms of his YouTube content. and infusing the music with the comedy is hilarious. Yeah, I've never seen anything like it. Maybe I just need to read up on some others that I haven't been well versed in. But Bo Burnham, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Bo Burnham, he has this like snide, almost cold way of being likable.
Mm-hmm.
And I never hate it. Like, he is kind of a jerk in the movie and kind of how he comes off, at least in his character. I'm sure he's great in real life. But it's a presence, and I liked it. And then you had Adie Bryant, who was also kind of also sharing the same role as Bo Burnham, and I enjoyed her performance in it as well.
Yes, absolutely. No, I absolutely agree.
The side characters here were all great. Everyone was great and useful in this movie. I don't think there was any dead weight that I could think of.
No, neither can I really. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, there really wasn't. For a 2-hour movie, it's perfectly mannered. You know what I mean? And it really sticks to it. You know who impressed the hell out of me in this movie? It was Ray Romano.
Yes.
Ray Romano is hilarious, and I've never said that before. He is hilarious here. He actually reminds me. I don't know if you watch the show. He reminds me of a lighter, less cynical Larry David from Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Okay.
That's who he reminds me of.
Yeah, especially in the scruffy era of Ray Romano.
Not only that, but like in the way that like he carries himself in some scenes too. You know what I mean? Like he's very funny, and I mean him and Nanjiani have excellent chemistry here,
and not just funny.
One of the strangest but best pairings, the comic pairings of the year.
And not just funny. He's legitimately a good actor.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know. I actually watched Everybody Loves Raymond, and I actually enjoyed it. Maybe that makes me a derivative, critic, I guess. No, I'm just kidding. But I guess growing up with it, I just really enjoyed it. And look, I got a soft spot for Ray Romano, but even removing that kind of slight bias I have for just, there's Ray Romano, being
of
Ray
course.
Romano, I think he actually portrays a complex character in this movie as both a parent that's in shock and trying to process all of this and care, and also as someone who's kind of a pushover.
Yes,
he can play that character.
Very
well.
Especially in the face of Holly Hunter, who is I think needs
She
recognition
like a viper,
here.
man.
Needs
Holy
recognition
crap.
here, and I mean she's got I think one of her best showcases in the whole movie is when Ray Romano's passed out and her and Nanjiani are looking at old photos of Emily and stuff. I think she comes out really in there, and especially one of the best scenes I would say top 10 scenes of the year so far is her calling out a racist frat boy at one of Nanjiani's showings. And I mean, a joke I don't want to repeat on air, not because it's vulgar, but it plays a little bit too, is also like the 9/11 conversation too that Nanjiani says in front of Ray Romano,
really funny,
which is very funny. And I don't even want to say it too because I think it's a great joke.
It's kind of not good to say on the air.
Well, not only that, but I actually think it's probably fine. But it's like it's also good for the scene that I don't want to give away. It was also one of the ones I was like biting my tongue trying to tell you when I first. Very surprising film. Like I said. Film, you know what I mean? In a lot of ways too. It's light, it's breezy, it's very good. You know what I mean? And it's very, it's weighty, even though it's kind of breezy. You know what I mean? There's a lot of. It's not afraid to give you that emotional element. You know what I mean? It's not afraid to give you that emotional element beneath all of the very zippy kind of charisma that the actors bring.
It bounces back and forth between zippy, light. Oh, here we are, and then like, whoa, what is this? Is like. This is some deep crap, man. What is happening here? This is a serious life moment.
And then it comes down really quickly too. Yes. You know what I mean? And not in a bad way, like in a way that you would say that life would. You know what I mean?
Like the movie Life?
Yeah. Well, no, just in general.
Just life in general.
Like life in general would. You know what I mean? And again, I think that Nanjiani is a really good screen presence. I don't hesitate to say actor. You know what I mean? Because I don't know how much of him here is acting.
It's too early. It's too early.
It's too early to judge. He's got too thin of a filmography, especially leading.
Yeah, this is not the movie to say like, oh, he's a great actor.
Zoe Kazan has always been good. I don't know if you saw that movie with Paul Dano, Ruby Sparks. which was really good.
What?
That was a
sounds
good
familiar.
one. That was the one about him who like he writes this. I'm blanking a little bit on the plot, but he like Paul Dano like kind of creates this imaginary fantasy character in one of his novels and stuff like that.
That sounds like an awesome movie, and I love Paul
It's a
Dano.
little bit. I do too. I think Paul Dano is one of the best actors working today, and I do not say that lightly. But no, there's a lot. There's a lot that she's done too that she's actually been pretty good into. But I think the scene stealers here are Kumail and I think Ray Romano, because I think Ray Romano, somebody who hasn't done a ton of stuff, somebody after obviously his big break, is somebody who hasn't done a lot. Ray Romano impresses here very much so.
Yeah, I was worried about just one big thing about this movie that it didn't do, thankfully, was its over-reliance on kind of the ethnicity of the character. And it introduced that, or it used that the background of the character, I think, well. It used it well, as opposed to just using it as a crutch, like he says in his stand-up routine. I think they actually spent like the first whole third of the movie just here is the person, Kumail Nanjiani.
Yes.
And he's just getting to know Emily. You don't need to go into like 20 different jokes about him being Pakistani or brown or whatever. Here's like, a passing thing because,
And this was written by Kumail and his wife, Emily V. Gordon.
He did not go heavy-handed.
No.
It played its part.
I mean, yeah, and like I said, there's also a very good, and there's also a very heavy Judd Apatow feel here too, because he's obviously a producer on this too, and it's his production company.
And another thing about this movie, I legitimately did not know how it was going to play out.
No, neither did I.
There was a point in this movie where it's like, oh, could it go this route? Is it actually doing this? Like, whoa! And then I don't know if it surprised me, but in the middle of the movie, it took me by surprise. I'll say that. The ending didn't floor me, but it surprised me.
And I frequently get asked, and I'm kind of like reading off my review. You can get it at stevethemovieman.proboards.com or influxmagazine.com. I kind of said at the end of my review, I said, I frequently get asked, like after recommending a movie to somebody, a new movie, is it worth seeing on the big screen? Is it worth not only the trip, but the thrill and the gusto of watching it on a screen the size of a house? You know what I mean? And I said, The Big Sick, I said, it doesn't have the visual thrills or the special effects magic that you would typically urge a person to see in a theater. But there's definitely a pleasure, I think, on seeing a very funny, timely comedy in the theater where the jokes are bigger, the laughs are louder, and the ambiance is very audible too.
I was laughing out loud.
And how many people were in your showing? Just curious.
I went to the morning show, and it was the obviously a matinee, and it was all full of people over the age of 60. So I would say 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 to 12.
Jeez, man. My morning show had 2 people aside from me at 10 o'clock in the morning. But you know what? All 3 of us were laughing, and it was great. And I love that. I live for that. You know what I mean? I live for that. Because you know how many movie theaters I've been in? And I'm not going to lie. Sometimes it's really these low-budget kind of indie Christian movies. I'm either the only one in the theater or there's another person there, and it is stone cold silent even when it should be funny. I'm serious. And even The House, I'll be honest with you too. I saw The House in a theater of about 10, and it really was. And for a comedy, there's nothing worse than seeing a comedy in a silent theater. And this, I think, is going to take a lot of people by surprise. And it's been heavily advertised, which I'm very grateful for, which I'm very happy about.
I love these characters, man.
I do too. I really did. I love this story. Again, I think it's one of the best films of the year. I would like, and now this is a stretch, I would like to see this get a couple Oscar nominations.
For what?
I would say Best Original Screenplay.
Yes.
I would say, I'm trying to think too. Probably, I'd say Best Original Screenplay.
Best Visual. No, I'm kidding. Best Visual Effects.
I would say Best Visual Effects. I would probably say that. I would say Best Original.
The Academy Award-winning Suicide Squad.
The Big Sick, though, because I would definitely say writing, and there's nothing else that I jump out as me as Oscar worthy. There's no real cornerstone performance. If I had to pick a performance, Ray Romano, but again, I wouldn't say Oscar worthy. You know what I mean? So I would say definitely original screenplay. It should. You know what I mean? If Straight Outta Compton can get a Best Original Screenplay nomination, I don't see why this can't.
Is that an original screen?
It is an
Well,
original. It wasn't.
yeah.
It wasn't based off a book or anything. You know what I
Okay.
mean, or a show. It was based. Yeah, it was just a regular original screenplay. I really like this movie, and I normally here's the thing too. The director of this movie, I hate the worst thing he could do is kind of like take swipes at a director after he just directed a movie you're considering one of the best films of the year. I normally do not like movies by Michael Showalter, who's the director of this film. I don't really like. I don't really care for the movie that he did, Wet Hot American Summer, which I know a lot of people like. I don't really care for that one in particular, and I just think that's a bad movie in general. The movie that's called They Came Together with Paul Rudd and Amy Poehler is good, not great. It's okay. Kind of it's like an SNL joke gone too far. And this movie, for even like having close roots to SNL, doesn't really feel too SNL, which is nice. You know what I mean?
That's great, because the moment you try and have an overbearing like Michael Lorne,
Lorne Michaels. You're thinking Lorne Michaels.
I knew that sounded wrong.
Lorne
Michaels kind of influence on it. It kind of brings the movie down.
Yes,
sadly
and
enough,
I like
which sucks.
You,
but
you know what reminded me of a great scene from another movie that I don't think really many people have seen? Take Me Home Tonight with Topher Grace. There's a great scene with Topher Grace who's like almost 30 and like can't find a job. His mom goes, he's like, we think you could. He doesn't know what he wants to do, so his mom goes, we just think you have such potential, honey. You can be an astronaut. So then Topher Grace goes, yeah, problem solved. I'll just be an astronaut. And there's a great moment in The Big Sick when Kumail Nanjiani goes, when his parents are trying to tell him what to kind of what path to take, and his sister-in-law says or whatever. His sister-in-law goes, you ever watch that show Saturday Night Live? He's like, you'd be great at that. And he goes, yeah, I should apply to Saturday Night Live.
I know I have a person in my kind of extended family that is working for Second City.
Yeah.
And she gets the same 3 to 5 questions every time she brings that up.
Oh,
To
yeah.
the point where she doesn't even want to say what she does for a
I don't
living.
blame her.
Right? It's like, can you be funny? Can you tell a joke right now? Or, have you tried out for Saturday Night Live? And it's like the same question.
When are you going to be on Saturday Night Live?
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's the struggle with trying to be a comedian. I think Kumail Nanjiani really emphasizes that too. Odd to say too that this movie also getting a wide release this weekend, and there's a big part. The movie Night of the Living Dead plays a significant part in the opening of the
funny
movie.
enough.
You know what I mean? And George A. Romero, the director of the film, obviously died this weekend. But I like this a lot. I think it's a very good movie. I think it's an extremely well written, extremely funny movie. I give it 3.5 out of 4 stars. I think it is really something that needs to be seen, and I think it is. I think this movie's gonna have good legs. I think it's gonna really be a movie that a lot of people do seek out in the theater. Your rating, Dominic Guanzon.
Yeah, so I should, if we're not going to give it 4 stars, which I'm not going to do, I would say
I was close. I'm not gonna lie. I was close.
Let's bring up why we didn't give it 4 stars. What held it back before we go into
You see, there's nothing explicitly that held it back. If I don't give a movie 4 stars, I give it 3.5. People always ask me why not a 4? And there's never usually a specific reason. It's just I think maybe it needed to have a little bit more of an emotional core, but even then I wouldn't say that as an explicit flaw. I think that, it's a very good movie. I'm not going to knock a very good movie for not being perfect. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I felt like I was doing that maybe a little bit too much with Baby Driver. I was knocking a good movie for being good.
That's a movie that was really trying hard to be perfect. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So in that aspect, you can do that.
This movie is great. The Big Sick is great. I'm not gonna push it. If I watch it again, I will say, if I do watch it again, which I would like to do before the end of the year, if I watch it again, there's a good chance I'd give this 4 stars, because I was pretty close. I was pretty close to doing